Welcome, everyone. I am Kimberly Ward, and today I'm starting a series on the stages of spiritual growth, and I'm really excited to bring these teachings to you. Susie and I started the Circle of Divine Souls channel so that we could share information and teach some really simple and practical skills to help you claim your truth as a divine being so that you can create the life of your dreams. So, welcome to our channel. Today, we're discussing the first of the 4 stages of spiritual growth, which is the victim stage. And I just wanted to let you know that I'm sharing the teachings of Dr. Michael Beckwith as the foundation of the series. I just love the way he describes the stages really simply and so beautifully. So thanks to Dr. Michael Beckwith for these amazing materials. As a quick overview, here are the 4 stages of spiritual growth. Now, these stages are not linear, but they are based on our beliefs and our perceptions about ourselves and the world. The victim stage is where we believe that life is happening to me. The manifestor stage, this is where that we believe that life is happening by me. The channeler stage is the belief that life is happening through me. And the being stage, life is happening as me. At each stage, there is a belief system in place, and moving from one stage to the next requires a shift in our perception of ourselves and of the world around us. So today we're diving into the first stage of victim consciousness. At this stage, we tend to think that it is the outside influences that determines our destiny. Victim consciousness doesn't necessarily mean that you identify as a victim, but it does mean that your perspective of the world is that life is happening to you. It means that you feel like you're at the mercy of your circumstances and you're left reacting to what's coming at you as opposed to being a conscious creator intentionally responding to your life experiences. At the extreme end, people in this stage constantly complain, make excuses, blame someone or something for their circumstances, and refuse to take self responsibility. They continually draw in people and situations that justify their victimhood. And they relate to life from the place of the ego. And the ego believes that something outside of itself determines its safety, well being, and happiness. I like to think of the ego simply as that part of us that is still wounded. And it is the part of us that, in fact, may have been victimized, but it still identifies as a victim. People in this stage may have a very deep wound that still needs a lot of healing. They may be very immature and irresponsible, or they may have done a lot of work to integrate all of the aspects of the ego, and they may, in fact, be highly functional, mature, and handle responsibility well. But no matter where they are on this spectrum, whether life is super hard or mostly good, the hallmark of this stage is believing that something outside of themselves determines their happiness and well being. So, for example, when I have more money, when my illness is healed, when I meet my perfect partner, then I will be happy. Or as long as I maintain this job, or as long as my kids are okay, then everything will be fine. Or if my partner would just change, if I just get a raise, if my family would just understand me, then I can be happy. Some common signs of the victim consciousness stage are blaming other people, blaming God, complaining a lot, constantly asking, why me? Holding on to guilt, shame, resentment, living in survival mode, having lots of self-sabotaging and or addictive behaviors, and not living in balance with giving and receiving. Again, it's not linear. So you might feel like a victim in one area of your life, even though you feel like you've mastered other areas. And I can tell you for sure from personal and professional experience that it's the area of your life where you feel frustrated, get easily triggered or overreactive, or where you struggle with unhealthy behaviors that is the place that you're stuck in the stage of victimhood. Now, we've all been victimized or traumatized at some point in our life, and the problem is not what happened to us, the problem is our perception of it. So moving out of the victim stage is largely about changing our perspective. So I invite you to think about what area in your life are you still stuck? Is it your money? Is it your relationships? Maybe it's your health. It's quite common for people to get stuck here in victim consciousness, especially when there's unresolved trauma from early childhood or generational trauma. And we have all had some sort of childhood or generational trauma. There's no one that's exempt from this. But we can move out of victim consciousness to the next stage, which is the manifestor consciousness. And this can happen through some very simple and powerful practices. Now, I said simple, but simple is not always easy. Believe me, I get that. But I have found that the victim stage is the most challenging phase to move through for many reasons, because it requires that you identify your defense patterns, but you have to stop identifying with them. It requires that you look at and accept your shadow self. It requires that you tame your inner critic. You'll have to learn how to calm your nervous system down and work with your energy system. You must feel and release all the feelings that you've been resisting or ignoring, and you must implement healthy boundaries. And finally, you must forgive yourself and others. Now, forgiveness does not mean that we condone the bad behaviors of those that have caused us harm. It simply means that we are willing to release the attachment to the past and the blame that has kept us stuck in victimhood. When you commit to healing and growing out of the victim consciousness stage, it ultimately leads to some realizations. You realize that you are a spiritual being having a physical experience. In other words, you are consciousness experiencing the physical world. You realize that everything is happening for your highest good. You realize that you are an incredibly powerful being, co-creating every aspect of your life experience with the creative source of the universe, God. You begin to understand that your soul chose every experience that you've ever had, even those experiences that were really, really hard. And that all of your life experiences were and are the perfect setup for you to learn the lessons that your soul chose for you to learn. And these realizations will propel you to the next stage of spiritual growth. That is the movement from victim to manifestor. Remember that the movement happens due to our change in perspectives and beliefs, not what happens to us, but our understanding of who we are, that we are having experiences. We're able to move from that victim perspective to the manifestor perspective. And this movement is a huge shift in perspective and can be really difficult. The ideas here that I just named go against many cultural norms and religious teachings, especially the idea that our soul chose to be victimized or that we chose to be the victimizer, because we do actually on a soul level choose every situation we're in. But when we are even a little bit open to the possibility that we are powerful beings co-creating our reality with God, life starts changing. An example of this really drastic shift in consciousness is from a client of mine who was dealing with severe neurological disease. And she said, if I don't take responsibility for creating the situation, I can't take responsibility for changing it. I've stopped blaming myself for getting this disease, and now I'm curious about what it has to teach me. Another client who was a victim of severe physical and emotional abuse said, my abuser was my greatest teacher. I can now see how that experience shaped who I am today, and I am truly grateful. It is often the trauma or victimization that is the catalyst that pushes us forward to the next stage, which is precisely why our soul chose to have the experience in the first place. Growing out of the victim stage does require us to take a lot of what I call radical responsibility for our own lives. And this can seem pretty overwhelming. It really was for me. But once I woke up to the reality that it was me that was creating and attracting every aspect of my life, I was then finally able to make real changes. because I was perceiving things differently and taking radical responsibility for every part of my life. Now, remember that healing is not linear. I got free from the victimhood in my relationships before I was able to shift the victimhood in my financial situation. So the question is this: how do we start to take radical responsibility? Seeing it and being willing to change is the key. I have to see where I am stuck in victimhood and be willing to let go of my identity as the victim so that then I can take full responsibility for myself. I am the one that has to do the work to change my life, and I have to be willing to see things differently. But once I'm willing to commit to this process, then I just get curious. And we call this being the objective observer. So again, I invite you to get curious about where in your life are you still holding victim consciousness? And then objectively observe how it's showing up in your life. And that means that you don't blame yourself and you don't blame anyone else for what you're observing. And you don't judge yourself or anyone else. Instead, you ask, what is trying to emerge from this situation? Or how is this situation serving me? We have to get in the habit of slowing down and objectively observing ourselves and asking questions. All of the answers are within us. When we are operating from victim consciousness, we look to the outside world for answers and direction. And then the cycle of victim blame perpetuates. So if you want to stop that cycle, if you want to stop the victim consciousness in yourself, you must go within. When we first start to tune inward for answers, it's really normal to feel like, number one, that you're not getting any answers, or number two, that you can't trust the answers that you are getting. And this is especially true if your system is full of unresolved trauma. So be patient and gentle with yourself. You have to learn to slow down and sit in silence so the answers can come. And this might require that you find a mindfulness practice, and then you actually have to practice the mindfulness practice and do it often. And you might be full of anxiety and resistance, literally held in your nervous system. So you're going to have to learn how to consciously calm down your nervous system and learn to work with your energy system. And that's because when we are in victim consciousness, our lower three energy centers, known as chakras, typically need a lot of work. That's our root chakra, the sacral chakra, and the solar plexus. Those energy centers are likely very distorted. So working with these chakras can help you move through this victim consciousness stage much more easily and efficiently. And truly, it's not complicated. It's actually really fun and easy to work with your energy system. So the good news is that our wounds that have kept us in victim consciousness can transform and become our superpower if we allow it. And when we do, our greatest challenge becomes the brilliance that we were meant to share with the world. So I wanted to let you know that we do have a lot of free resources available at Somagetics where you can learn how to heal your wounds and to balance those lower chakras and move past the victim stage. A natural part of spiritual growth is the strong desire to help other people. So we also offer the Trauma Energetics Coaching Program that will support you in your personal healing while teaching you a system that you can use to help others. So if you are interested in learning more about our program, please simply click the link below to read more. Well, I want to thank you so much for listening. And if you enjoyed this content, please like the video and subscribe to our channel. And you can get a daily inspirational email message if you sign up below for our daily soul message. So thanks for listening, and please stay tuned to the next video in the series on the manifestor stage. And also check out Susie's video called How to Manifest Your Desires, where she shares the manifest acronym for spiritual growth. So bye for now. I hope to see you soon.